Hey everybody, this is Brett with the Indie Comics Dispatch and broadcasting from an undisclosed location deep within the Milky Way galaxy. This is broadcast from the Dispatch.
If you got a story and you want the world to know it, if you think you ready and you ain't afraid to show it, throw your hands up high, yeah, we might stand out. We always representing cause that's what it's all about. We always representing cause that's what it's all about. And if you love some indie comics, let me hear you shout. Like, just stay tuned, what's the story? Had to get that every time a brand new indie comic from the Dispatch.
Hey everybody, welcome to another Thursday night, our first real show of the new year for broadcast from the Dispatch. We did a little preview thing last week with Chris from Business of Comics, Quentin from Quentin's Engine Works, and my new co-host who is not here this week because of work scheduling stuff. And so we did a little preview show last week. It was a lot of fun. And we're back in the swing of things this week with broadcast, and I'm so excited. Tonight's show it's going to be a good one. We got some people on the show that we've been trying to get on the show for a while, and one thing or another kept happening, and we have to keep reshuffling. But I'm so excited to have the folks from Literati Press and then the broader Oklahoma indie comic scene on the show tonight. I'm really excited to dive in and talk with them because Literati's got some great things going on that I'm really excited to share about. A couple things. First, I found out yesterday my son came home all snotty-nosed, and we were like, oh crap, and so we got him tested, and he does indeed have COVID. I'm feeling it too, and so I also have it, and I am doing my best. I'm doing my best. Okay, I'm doing my best. But if I get a little distracted tonight, it's just because I'm a little medicated. So please forgive me. Other things going on at the Dispatch starting next week. So you're going to go less than a week without a show because next week we're switching broadcast to Tuesday nights. Quentin's Engine Works is returning on Thursday nights, and then very soon we'll have the Business of Comics happening every other Sunday, I believe, and then Brian Lambert's new show Behind the Comics is on Saturdays now, most Saturdays, not every Saturdays, but most Saturdays. And so I am super excited that we kind of have a full slate of shows going again. It's going to be fantastic, a lot of fun and good times. So yeah, another couple things before we get into the show tonight. If you are an independent creator out there, and I know we get a lot of you guys watching the show, and you want Indie Comics Dispatch to cover your comic book, there's a couple really easy ways to do that. We love to cover independent creators, small press creators. In fact, that's all we do. So if you go to indiecomicsdispatch.com, that's comics with an X, indiecomicsdispatch.com, there's a little button at the top, a little link that says submit, and you can submit either a press release or your comic book for review. That's the easiest way to get featured, is submitting a press release or submitting your comic for review. We don't guarantee timetables on the reviews because we get so many, and we have a volunteer staff of reviewers, but we do review. I usually post 3 reviews a day when I'm filling up to it. This morning I did not post any, sorry. But usually we're posting 3 reviews a day plus all the news that's coming out that day on the website. And so that's a great way to get featured on Indie Comics Dispatch. Also, you can tag us on social media. Instagram's the best way for us to see it because sometimes Facebook tags are a little weird. But if you tag us on social media, we'll at least be aware of you and hopefully be able to feature you in some way or another, even if it's just sharing you to our story. So tag us, but definitely go submit. I'm going to be doing it's there, Dan. It's a little hidden. I got it. So Dan Price just asked, where's the link for uploading a digital copy? It's on the webpage, indiecomicsdispatch.com. Go to submit a comic for review. It's there. For some reason, my link colors changed randomly with the WordPress update, and it kind of blends in. But the link is there. Just kind of hover around till you see it, and I'm going to be updating that link color this week so that you can see it. So anyway, want to be featured? That's the best way. I'm going to be doing a video very soon on how to write a press release. If you don't know how, press releases are new to a lot of people. But doing a video on just how to really easily put together a quick press release that you can send to us and to other news agencies also. Because a lot of local news likes to cover independent creators. You might not know that, but you could be being featured in local newspapers and local media in your hometown. So anyway, without much further ado, I said as we were talking, the intro there that we've been trying to have these guys on for a while, and I'm so excited to have them here. First up for this evening is Charles and Steve from Literati Press in Oklahoma. Welcome, gentlemen.
Well, thanks for having us. Can I ask you about your arcade machine?
What's that?
Can I ask you about your arcade machine?
Totally. Please do. So I got it at a church. So it was like a church yard sale type thing, and they're like, it doesn't work. So I got it for free. And it did work. There was just some stuff to do on the inside, but I ended up tearing out the guts of it and putting in a multicade. So because the old CRT, and it was slowly going out, so I either had to figure out a way to refurbish the CRT, get a new CRT, or just replace it with an LCD. So I went LCD.
That's a dream of mine, and I've never been able to finally section out the time to make one. So good on you.
Yeah. I totally nerded out with it. So, gentlemen, let me introduce you properly. Charles here is the founder and creative director of Literati Press comics and novels, who began by stealing office supplies to make comics with friends, then stumbled his way slowly to legitimacy. We're glad you found legitimacy. He now helps run the Literati Press bookshop and print shop in, how do you say that? Paseo Arts District. Thank you for the assist there. And Steve is operations manager at Literati Press Comics and Novels, maker of little zines, games, and comics, fan of the incredible comic talent all over Oklahoma. Guys, welcome.
Exciting. And real quick, thanks for that guide to writing press releases. About a year ago, when I got tabbed with writing press releases, that was kind of my base to learn from. So thank you so much.
No problem. And I'm really glad, because and honestly, nobody's ever given me feedback on that article. Like it gets good hits, but nobody's ever been like, this is helpful. So it's nice to know it's helpful.
It was very helpful. Yeah, thank you.
And like I said, I'm going to be doing a video soon, so that like a lot of people want to be like, hey, can you feature my Kickstarter? Like, send a press release, and they have no idea how. But if you've already set up your Kickstarter campaign with all that information, it's so easy to make a press release. So we're going to have a little video on that sometime soon too. Anyway, Steve and Charles, tell us more about yourselves. What is your origin stories as creators?
Steve, you want to take that one first?
Sure. Mine's relatively short. So I make just like little 6-page comics and stuff like that, and kind of sell them at zine fests and things. So my creative stuff is relatively small. But I was a doctoral student in comparative literature, and kind of was driven insane by that, and decided I was going to start making mini comics because I really liked comics, but had kind of shied away from working on them academically because I thought I needed to be a serious scholar. And in retrospect, I'm glad I didn't work on them academically, because they were still this thing that I could enjoy. So, and then I ended up working at Literati at the bookshop, and then just kind of took on more responsibilities and stuff, as I said, like, hey, why don't we do this? And Charles said, okay, do it.
Now, Steve is underselling himself a little bit. He is an award-winning zine maker who became a legend in the field by creating zines in a dumpster.
Yes.
Wow.
I lived in a very nice dumpster in Austin for about 10 days. You can do it too. It's an artist residency. You have to agree to be a human research subject, and they measure like how much energy you use and things like that.
Wow.
And then you do like an arts project at the end. And mine was a little how to make comics at the used bookstore of the Austin Public Library.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Charles, what's your origin story other than stealing office supplies?
So I've always, since I was a little child, I've always been a writer. So from the time that I was in elementary school, it was all trying to figure out how to make that work as a living, and still trying to figure out how to make that work as a living. But in the interim, I've written a whole slew of books and comics and screenplays and all kinds of nonsense. So comics were something that I read quite a bit as a kid, specifically like joke comics like, "Hey, Mark, how you feeling, Mark?"
Sorry, we were muted.
"How you feeling, Mark?"
Good.
Good.
Feeling
Excellent.
much better. This is my son. I promised him he could come say hi during this.
Definitely. Well, we
All
hope
right.
you start feeling better, Mark.
Do you want to say thanks?
Thanks.
Go ahead, Chris.
Oh yeah. Mark is beloved, so he's a great kid. So I started. I was part of an arts cooperative about 12 years ago, and I was still a writer flailing about trying to figure out what to do with my life. And that arts cooperative was just like a hive of subversive, ambitious artists, and one of them just kind of took me to task that I was writing, but I really wasn't doing anything with it, and that I didn't need an agent, I didn't need a publisher, I didn't need any of that. I just needed to get to work. And that kind of became the ethos of Literati Press, that whatever it takes to get the project made, that's what you do. You don't need money, you don't need connections, you don't need that. You just need to figure it out. Grab some friends, go wait tables, whatever you have to do to get money for the next book shipment. And that's how we lived from 2010 up until about 2 years ago, of, put in an extra shift at work, buy another box of books, do an event, try and raise some money to throw in the gas tank so you can go out to California and do a promotional tour. But about 2 years ago, after coming off of one of the biggest successes of our company that we actually ended up losing, it was Natasha Alterichi's Heathen. It was this just huge breakthrough of a comic that was way too successful for what we could handle, and we ended up having to sell it to a larger publishing company, Vault, and they did a wonderful job with it. But after that, we realized, we had lightning in a bottle, and we gave it away. And we had to, because we were holding the comic back, so we didn't have the infrastructure. But that's when Steve and Brian Buck Berlin from New World Comics and a bunch of the other people who've kind of become the inner circle, we started talking about, okay, well, if this happens again, what do we need to have in place so we don't have to lose another title? And so we spent all of 2019 talking about that. And we're like, okay, 2020 is going to be the year. It's going to be our year. And then the pandemic happened.
You're the one.
Yeah, so it was our fault. Sorry about that. But the good thing about that was it gave us time to, in another year, just to continue thinking this through. So whenever we did start launching comics in the summer of 2020, that was a year and a half of like planning, finally going into the launch of 3 comics: Glamorilla's Daughter, Blackjack Demon, and We Promised Utopia. And they, going through Diamond, trying to do everything trying to do everything professionally. Like, we had fantastic artists, we have great storytellers, and we have a lot of enthusiasm, and we have Steve. So we were like, okay, we've got what we need. Let's try and go as big as we can. And we definitely surpassed what we anticipated for this year. So this year coming up, we're riding on the heels of a very successful release off of Res Detectives. And so that's going to be taking us on to what we'll be releasing in 2022. So we're excited. We're ready to go. We're at all full capacity right now. So it's a small team of people just constantly buzzing. We spent 3 days arguing about how to draw a tree for We Promised Utopia. So We're in it for real. We are serious about what we're doing right now.
That's awesome. So I didn't know until I was doing research for the show. As I was doing research for the show, I discovered that Heathen was first published by you guys. I had no clue. I was a huge Heathen fan. My oldest daughter has read the graphic novels also. And so that I feel like that says something about you guys, that you had this lightning in a bottle and you knew you were holding it back and were willing to let it go. So I think that says something about the work ethic that's at Literati already.
Well, it's about telling stories. We care about the stories more than we care about anything else. So whatever we can do to service that.
That's really
Natasha, she's from Oklahoma as well. And I found out about her. She was working on another comic and I saw what she was doing. Her artwork was fantastic. I was like, hey, have you ever thought about doing like a little short comic for our anthology? We have this anthology we do every year called Literati Presents. And she's like, and I was like, we could give you a script or whatever you need. And she's like, I think I might want to write something. And I was like, okay. In my head, it's like, her art's so good. She can write whatever she wants to and we'll fix it. We're good at it. She turned in this great script. And I was like, oh. And then she was like, then she told me, I've got this Viking tale. And I'm like, well, we don't really do Vikings, but go ahead and send it to me and I'll see. And then she sent it to me. I was like, oh, this is a hit. And every single issue, man, she's a fantastic artist, but she's an even better storyteller.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Whenever we lost that, I was sending out 40 comics a day. I was packing stuffing, and it was just too much. So it was bittersweet to send her on, but it's really cool to see everything that ended up happening with her. Yeah. And no, we can't talk about that yet.
Okay.
Yeah, Steve. No, we can't.
Okay.
Well,
when you're ready to talk about it, send it to ICD.
There's news coming up. That's very exciting.
Yes.
Send it to ICD after you post it on your own site. Okay.
We will definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're pretty giddy. We've been holding it back for a while, but anywho, that's us.
Well, now I'm giddy and I don't even know what it is. So you went through your titles, and we're familiar with all your titles at ICD because I think we've posted about every one and reviewed 3 of the 4, I think. And so maybe all 4. I don't know. I can't remember.
I can't remember, but y'all have been you've been great. So
awesome. Thank you for that. But give us a little more detail on the titles that you currently have.
Steve?
Yeah, so Blackjack Demon is a sort of weird Western. This giant explosion happens in a mine in southern Oklahoma, and this thing crawls out of the ground and kills this kid's dad. And this is in like late 19th century, and it ends up this revenge chase across the West as he chases down this thing, the Blackjack Demon, that crawled out of the mine and killed his pa.
Yeah, it's done by Nick Hermes, who's he's actually just a fantastic oil painter. That's how he made his living for years and years and years, and then decided that he'd done it for long enough. He wanted to go back to his first love of comics. So it's very much a Mobius kind of spaghetti Western, a lot of aesthetic pullover from there. And the line work is extraordinary. He's a one-man machine. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, and you get like he these are actual oil paintings for the covers. So yeah, I mean, and then and he's super talented, and just is a true fan of the medium. And
he came in, we met him. We have this thing that we do every week called Ink and Draw. It's our mentorship for upcoming comic book writers and artists. Well, more artists than writers, but we have a lot of artists that come. And he came in one day and he was just like, yeah, I'm thinking about doing a comic. And we didn't know him from Adam. And he was like, I got some things for you to look at if you're interested. And we were like, yeah, sure. And we looked at him, we're like, oh my gosh, this is ready. Throw some ink on this. This is ready to print. He's like, oh no, these are just thumbnails. And it was like, oh my gosh. So that was another thing where we're like, oh wait, here's another lightning in a bottle.
Yeah. Somebody asked on Instagram, and I don't think it is. That's a film now, right? I don't believe Blackjack Demon is a film.
No, but, if anybody wants to make it into a film, let us know.
There you go.
It would be a great film.
Yeah.
So what about the other titles? We got Blackjack Demon, Glamorella's Daughter. I think it's probably my personal favorite.
Yeah, I absolutely love Glamorella's Daughter too. So Charles is the writer on this, so I'll let Charles talk about this one.
Oh, well, so Jerry Bennett is he's the one who came up with the concept, and he came to me to ask if I wanted to write it for him, and then we kind of fleshed out the story. It's about the autistic daughter of the world's only superhero, and it spends less time talking, about heroism and like going out and putting out fires, and it's really all about the relationship of the mother and the father and the child, and how all three of them have very different worldviews, and they care about each other, but it's really hard for them to sync. But they have to if they're going to save the world. So it's more interpersonal comedy. I got autism in our family, so it's a subject that I'm really, really close to, and that's Glamorella's Daughter.
Love it.
As someone who doesn't write it, it's beautiful and hilarious, and just some of the best relationships that I've seen on paper. So,
thank you.
That's fantastic. And then what else we got there?
We Promised Utopia, which is our sci-fi epic. It spans 3 time periods, each one of which is drawn by a different artist. So you've got kind of these visual markers of time periods. So each issue goes back and forth between the various time periods. And it deals with kind of our present moment of climate change and grappling with that, and then a future where that has been solved, and it's this, it's the utopia in the title, and everything is idyllic and beautiful, and future cars. We've got future cars, and then the far future where somehow another ice age has happened, and that civilization has kind of collapsed. And it's really a mystery at its core. It's hard sci-fi. It's created by an energy engineer and geophysicist. Yes. So it's got like heavy science background, but it's really a mystery at its core. How do we go from one thing to the other that's slowly being revealed?
Yeah, and the big challenge of We Promised Utopia is whenever Adrian and Robert came in, Adrian came into our bookshop because he had approached an artist in our arts district to do the art, because he's a wonderful illustrator, but he's also brutally honest, and he's just like, I don't want to draw that. But he's like, go talk to Charles across the street. He might be able to help. And Adrian came in and just told me about this beautifully flushed out idea of how you would create a utopia, and like the foundation of the comic. And I was like, oh, that sounds actually really, really cool. Like, I get pitched a lot of ideas, and we'll politely say, you should go draw that. But this one, I was like, man, this is a great idea. I actually kind of want to write this for you. Well, tell me about the characters. And it's like, there's no characters yet. That's what you're here for. I was like, okay. So like, that's why we spend 3 days arguing about a tree that we've got. But it shows. And the challenge is to make the comic entertaining. It needs to be, that's its first function, is to be entertaining. Right. So Robert and Adrian are fantastic about like kind of letting the story do its thing. And at the end of every issue, we have a white paper that they write about one particular part of the science that creates this utopia, which is also part of the mystery. So if you like hard sci-fi, we've got your number. And if you like a good, fun noir sci-fi mashup, we've got your thing. So
that's amazing. And your latest title, The Res Detectives.
Yeah. So this, Charles, I'll let you do this one. We'll bounce back and forth here.
Stephen Paul Judd and Tully came to us.
Yeah.
It came to us about this. So Stephen Paul Judd is a really renowned Native American pop artist that I met because we hosted a show that his art was in, and we sell his stickers at the shop. And he came in and asked me if I knew anybody who did lettering, and I was like, well, I could do some lettering. What do you need it for? And he showed me this graphic novel of these two young kids who were growing up on a reservation, and one of them wants to make a detective agency and kind of loops the other one into it. And what's great about it is it's really bouncy and fun, and the characters are very, just very enchanting. And it feels like Scooby-Doo or Encyclopedia Brown. And yeah, it's just hilarious. It's just a really, really funny comic. There are jokes in that I've read that thing probably 100 times, through every pass I've done through it, and they still make me laugh. Stephen currently is writing his first comic debut for Marvel. Just came out this Wednesday.
Oh, cool.
He's writing on a Marvel TV show as well.
Oh, wow.
So his star is Ascendant. And Tully he did a TED Talk. He's just, he's got a really high profile as well. And this is a graphic novel that should not have been published by us. It should have been published by like Boom or somebody. And I made the mistake of telling Stephen that, and he's like, oh, that's interesting. And he went and told his agents, and his agents were like, oh, that's interesting. And they were doing that. And then Stephen just like came to me. I was like, I'm tired of waiting. Let's just put it out. I was like, okay, here's a contract. We got really, really lucky. Kirkus just gave us a really glowing starred review. And yeah.
That's awesome. We just dropped Stephen's link in the chat on Facebook and YouTube. So if you're interested in learning more about Stephen Paul Judd, that link is there in the comments section too.
Him and Tully are just wonderful humans, and they just told this really, really great story. We're really proud of it.
That's awesome. It's been great shipping it out. I've Trey and I are basically the shipping department at Literati, the two of us, and I've been keeping a map of everywhere I've shipped it, and I think we're up to 42 states. Oh, cool. Little tiny communities in Minnesota, things like that. Like it's fabulous to see, and they're ordering like 10 copies. It's fabulous to see, people seeing themselves being represented. So
there's a nonprofit called Illuminative, and they bought a bunch of copies wholesale, and are just distributing them to Native communities around the country, just for their schools and libraries. So yeah, it's really a cool project that we're very fortunate to be associated with.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So what's you intimated that you have some news coming up soon. So we won't bug you about that. We'll let that happen when it happens. But what else can you tell us is coming up in 2022 for you guys?
Well, we do this annual art show called Comics is Art, and it is 5 pages and a cover, and ideally it's a self, beginning and end from page 1 to page 5. That's in September. So we're going to put out an open call for that we'll want to try and get out for, artists from wherever. Usually we focus on Oklahoma, but this year we're kind of opening up. In the winter of the first year, Greg White and Colin Ingersoll, they finally finished or are about to finish season 1 of Alien Engaged, which won that first year. So that'll be coming out in the fall. We have trades coming out for Glam, We Promised Utopia, and Blackjack Demon. And then we may be having Giant Killer, which was also in that first show, and that'll be a graphic novel. That might squeak in this year, but it's probably going to be next year.
If it does, it'll be the very end of the year. Which that'll be a graphic novel, sort of more in that kind of Fantagraphics kind of wheelhouse. Mm-hmm. Alien Engaged is wonderful. It's a comedy. It's sort of like Shaun of the Dead, but with an alien invasion. So
kind of an 80s neon, glow to it. Nice. Greg is just a hilarious illustrator, and him and Colin just wrote this really charming, vibrant story. Great joke comic.
That's awesome. I love comics like that. Like that. Just I don't know. Shaun of the Dead's my jam, and so I'm sure I'll love that comic too. Well, very cool. Well, tell everybody how they can follow Literati Press. There's one more question, but I'm going to say because we're going to ask everybody this question in a little bit. So tell everybody how to follow Literati Press and where they can find you. And if they're in Oklahoma City, they can actually visit the bookshop, right?
Yeah. At Literati Press, at all social media channels, and our bookshop is 3010 Paseo in Oklahoma City. Paseo is this crazy Santa Fe architecture kind of thing that looks like nothing else in the entire city, and it's just a bunch of galleries and hippies and just bohemia going back to the 30s. We're actually in an abandoned swimming pool.
Oh, cool.
It's a difficult building in many ways, but it's a wonderful building. And if you're around on a Sunday, if you're in Oklahoma City on a Sunday, we have our ink and draw. And it's something that's really close to us because coming up as a creator, not having any idea what to do with, I know I want to create something, but I don't know what to do with that. It's a place where if you're wanting to make comics or just be a writer, or you just like to draw and you just want to be around people that can kind of, look over your shoulder, give you some tips if you want them, or just like commiserate it, or maybe be like, okay, well, this is cool. Have you thought about, doing this or this and this with it? It's a place where you can go in and get guidance and support. And it's great. And that goes from 3 to 5 every Sunday.
Yeah, we've got everybody from, 14-year-olds to like Nick, who had a full career as an oil painter and everything, just kind of come and work and draw together. John Eric Osborne, our art director, is there too, and he taught art for many, many years, so he's a great teacher. And then Jerry Bennett, who draws Glamorella's Daughter, is usually there. He's currently an artist in residence at University of Science and Arts in Oklahoma. So we've got some real teachers there too. So
Well,
I just think it's a cool thing that I wish I'd have had access to, like to be able to go into like Image Comics or something. We're not Image Comics, obviously, but go into like Image or Fantagraphics and be able to just walk in and sit down and draw next to, somebody who does this for a living, somebody that might have created something that you really respect. And I know there's opportunities to do that sporadically, but like this is a regular thing. It's something I wish I'd have had access to. So we're lucky enough that we're able to create it.
That's one of the things that I love about the independent and small press community is the willingness to open up and teach each other. And you guys, it sound like you're creating just a really cool community out there in Oklahoma. If nothing else, just through that meeting, ink and draw, right? Did I get that right?
Yeah, ink and draw.
That's fantastic. Well, speaking of community, let's welcome some other community members. We're going to shift the focus a little bit and just talk broader indie comics and the Oklahoma indie comic scene. If I mispronounce anything, I'm so sorry. I'm skipping last names because I didn't have a chance to clarify last name pronunciation before we went live. So we'll start with Carl. Carl is a Tulsa artist fellow, performer, director, sound artist, and cartoonist whose major work focuses on bringing graphic novels to the stage and elaborate stage readings that bridge the gap between radio and stage play. Carl, you sound right up my alley. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Next up, we have Lane. Lane is a Tulsa-based freelance graphic designer, comic artist, and animator with a passion for visual storytelling, sardonic humor, and elaborate productions. They peddle their graphic novels, Spacewalking, run an ongoing webcomic, Hotel Motel, and spend most hours of the day animating for music videos. Lane, welcome.
Glad to be here.
And finally, Jeff. Jeff got his start in comics with the Academy webcomic, which ran as a daily 4-panel for 10 years from 2003 to 2013 and is being republished with creators commentary in 2023. In 2017, Jeff started Okie Comics Magazine, a platform online and in print to showcase Oklahoma comics talent. Jeff also tells a lot of ghost stories. Welcome, Jeff.
Hello.
Guys, welcome. So first of all, I mean, okay, I'm in Atlanta. We have a really decent indie comic community here, I would say. And I'm probably kind of biased and look down my nose at other indie comic communities. I had no clue there was such a diverse, growing, vibrant indie comic community in Oklahoma. That was like such news to me. So let's talk about that. How did you all first cross paths, and how did Jeff, Lane, and Carl tell us a little bit about how you became creators yourselves? Anybody who wants to go first, I can call out, but I don't want to do that.
Which of those questions do you want to answer first?
Let's start with your creator origin story first. How did you become a creator, and then to wrap it up, you can tell us how you crossed paths with Charles and Steve.
I don't remember not doing comics. I've done them since I was a kid. I didn't really I stopped doing them when I was in high school, with the idea that it'd be a lot easier to get dates if I wasn't drawing comics all the time. Turns out not true. And so I picked them back up again when I was in college, and then eventually I went to the Center for Cartoon Studies in beautiful White River Junction, Vermont, where I got my MFA in sequential art, and then tooled around for a few years drawing comics, and my wife Sophie Goldstein got the fellowship out here, and we moved out here like 3 or 4 years ago now, and the rest, as they say, is history. I am not sure actually how I met Charles and Steve. Charles, I don't think we've actually met.
So Carl submitted his comic to the Comics as Art show, and then came down and sold comics on there's a first Friday gallery walk at the Paseo. So he came down, set up, sold some of his comics. I really enjoyed talking to him and was like, yay, people in Tulsa doing this, yay. Because I like the state community. So anyway, so I was
That's
like,
awesome.
hey, Carl would be awesome to talk to for this.
Thank you for remembering, Steve.
Lane, what's your creator origin story?
I'm a lot similar in the fact that I've always just been creating. I've always been drawing. I was writing stories in middle school and the like, and that's really kind of come to a head. I got a degree in graphic design, and from there kind of built on all these, things that I wanted to do, which is now I'm freelancing, so I'm finally doing all the things that, I'm wanting to do all the time. So, which is both good and bad. But yeah, it's very similar that I've just always done it. I can't not do it.
I love that. And how did you cross paths with Literati Press?
When I wrote my first graphic novel, they were one of the only open comic places that I could reach out to and just talk to pretty normally and naturally. So yeah, I just kind of got an email back. It was nice.
Yeah, Lane sent us a sample, and Charles was like, "Hey, look at this! I think you might like this." And yeah, it was my favorite comic of last year, or was that 2 years ago? I can't. Time has no meaning.
No.
But whatever year we got it, it was my favorite thing because it's amazing. It's kind of like this throwback to like Adam Strange or something like that. But it's also very like now and of the moment. So I was just blown away by it.
Yeah, it's one of our favorite hand cells in the comic shop. It's always nice to be able to put that in someone's hand. It was really, really well executed. I don't know that I've met you in person, Lane, but yeah, well done.
Yeah, not personally. But yeah, that was that's spacewalking, and that was my attempt at kind of trying to take one of those old fish out of water, kid goes to space and like becomes a hero, but it kind of flips on its head. Like, what if this kid was just, some depressed kid out in the alley somewhere and not really wanting to take up the mantle. So, and there's a lot more to it, but yeah, it was a fun little project for sure. And I'm glad it's very supportive. Thank you.
Very cool. Jeff?
Yeah, so I got into comics kind of by accident, I guess. I like to write, so writing is really my thing. And then comics kind of came into that when I wanted to put together a novel about going to a magnet school, which I did, and had all these little fun stories, and started writing the novel, and it was terrible. Like even as a teenager writing the novel, I was like, man, this is bad. So I reevaluated and like, well, it would be a lot cooler if it was a comic strip, like Calvin and Hobbes. But I was like, oh, well, there's no way, I can get in the newspaper or anything. But they had this weird thing called web comics coming out there in 2002. And like anybody could just make a web comic. It blew my mind. So I started doing this web comic and learned a whole lot about dialogue and pacing and how to construct along the panel and all this awesome stuff. So that got me into kind of local scene, and was blown away once again just by how many people had so much talent and really not as much way to spread it out, right? You'd be like, oh, you should go work for Marvel. I'm like, well, technically only a handful of people work for Marvel. Like it's a really small group of folks. But we have all this just talent sitting out there. What are we going to do with it? And about that same time, I started gathering local spooky stories and doing ghost tours and things. So I had a little disposable income, and I thought, what if we like made it our own thing? So I was writing for a couple of different local magazines. They have them in front of restaurants and stuff back when we used to have restaurants. And so, write little snippets and things. And I was looking at the page rates, and like those are pretty comparable to indie comic page rates. So what if we did that? And 2017 started up with all these different folks and emailed and said, hey, I want to do this anthology, just all kinds of little stories and snippets, and we're going to call it Okie Comics. And if you want to do some, let me know. And a whole bunch of people jumped on board, and we did a bunch of issues and was going really strong. Got a really awesome job offer, so that kind of tapped the brakes on it a little bit. And then 2020 happened, and everybody's advertising money completely disappeared. So put that on pause. Did a couple of kind of short runs with some Indiegogo and Kickstarter and stuff, and very curious about what it's going to be this post-pandemic world. You never know what's going to happen next.
Yeah, I'm too. I'm wondering how the convention scene will have shifted, how crowdfunding has been forever shifted, probably by the pandemic. And yeah, I'm interested, as they are arguing right now if we're in the endemic stage or not, and what's that going to look like for comics, Yeah.
One of the things that Okie Comics magazine did that really helps with what we're trying to build, like not just Steve and I, but everybody in this call and a lot of people beyond that, was Okie Comics was a free magazine that you could just pick up. So parents would pick up like an Oklahoma Gazette, which is like our weekly, and then the kids would pick up the Okie Comics. And the difference between like a newspaper and Okie Comics is the kid keeps picking up Okie Comics. Like it's something that lives in the house now. And the parents are seeing this and like, oh my gosh, this kid's actually reading. And they come into our shop and they're like, our kid is reading this Okie Comics magazine. Like, what else could you read? Like we're just excited about getting more books in his hands. So it was having a huge impact. So it's a thing that whenever the pandemic happened and we saw that, there's just no way that you can keep a magazine that is located in restaurants that aren't even open. Like we were like, okay, we got to figure out how we can help Jeff keep this thing going, because it's an amazing idea and it's so good for everything that we're trying to do as a state.
Yeah. I mean, I remember the first time I saw one, I was like, wait, this cannot be real. Like this has to be somebody's like one-off art project that they have just dumped like, hundreds of these, probably thousands, right, Jeff, all over the city.
30,000 issue run.
Yeah. Wow. And it was just, I was like, what this can't be happening in Oklahoma City. It's mind blowing. It's so cool. So yeah, it is an amazing thing. And hopefully it'll come back.
Hopefully we can find a new life for it, whatever shape it takes.
Yeah, it is a really cool concept. I want to talk more about you at some point, not about you, with you at some point, Jeff, about the concept behind that and everything. It's a really cool idea. I did drop in the comments section, Canto Comics. Am I saying that right, Carl?
Yep. That's
In the comment section, if anybody else has a web address you want me to drop in the comment section, shoot it to me in the private chat here. So we talked a little bit. I don't think. Let's talk about what you guys have coming up. What's coming down the road for you? And what's your next upcoming project? Lane, you're now on the far right because Carl dropped and rejoined, so you're in the seat first.
Yeah, well, I'm mainly working on my webcomic right now, but I really want to get something printed this year. That's kind of my main goal, is to get something on paper again. What that's going to be, I'm not sure yet, but until then, I'm just going to be grinding away at other projects. But that's, yeah, kind of what I'm aiming for.
Very cool. Jeff?
Trying to figure out what's going to be the next thing. I've been doing all these ghost tours, and I do a downtown Oklahoma City tour, and now another neighborhood and another neighborhood and another neighborhood. They're saying, hey, we should do like local ghost tours. Can you lead those for us too? And like, I can make them, but I can only be in one place at a time.
Right.
So we got to see where comics are going to fit in with all the different things that I want to do.
That's always the case, isn't it? In my life, at least. Carl?
I just put out a graphic novel called Term Ring, the first couple of issues of which are available at Literati. But this is the collected one that came out last month, I guess.
Wow.
And I'm working on another long comic that I just finished the penciling stage for, which I'm going to adapt to the stage. It'll be a one-man show, and it's in partial color, so it's it's going to be a lot of work, but it's going to be a good one, I hope.
Where are you going to perform that at?
I figured I'd burn that bridge when I come to it.
Okay. We may or may not have a space for you. That comes, so keep us abreast.
If you have space, then I will add OKC to the tour. This will be something that will probably debut here in Tulsa, and then I'm going to attempt to take it on tour, hopefully to Bethesda, Maryland for SPX, probably in Austin for Staple, and I don't know, wherever else wants me.
Very cool. Very cool.
Awesome.
So let's talk about the importance kind of community within the indie comic community. I'm to use the word twice. A strong writer creator community, particularly in cities or regionally, I feel like can really totally change the dynamics of the indie comic scene in an area. For so long, zines, underground comics were a very localized thing that now through the internet we can take them anywhere. What is the space? Do you think? Do we still need strong local communities, or is the internet good enough for that now?
I think a strong local community is utterly essential to fostering and creating of comics of any type. There's such a solitary medium that you can go insane doing comics by yourself and not having anybody to bounce ideas off of. What Literati Press is doing down there in OKC is it's such an inspiration, such a good source for people to come together and sort of bounce ideas off of each other.
Well,
we don't have here, I don't think.
Yeah, and I think Carl's right. Like any of us who've been, especially in a creative medium like writing or illustration, yeah, you know, the internet just doesn't give you the spontaneous conversations that you get whenever you're just sitting in a room next to somebody for 2 hours that you don't expect to have anything, in common with them, and then all of a sudden you're talking about some obscure anime or whatever. Or that's the thing about conventions is on the exhibitor side, you're sitting next to an artist for 8 hours, and before you know it, you're talking about a potential collaboration, doing a thing on Nightcrawler just for the fun of it. And that's actually how Jerry and I first started talking about collaborating. Just being in the same space, breathing the same air with other creatives who are trying to do the thing that you're doing. there are ideas that are going to unlock that wouldn't unlock any other way. And the biggest challenge we have now is getting out beyond our own Paseo community, our normal creators, and trying to get, budding creators from every part of Oklahoma City and the wider metro that, they're weirdos. We're all weirdos. We're all, we're unlike anyone else in our family. We're probably unlike anyone else in the schools that we went to. And we feel just crazy isolated until you realize there are a lot of us out there.
There's a lot of weirdos.
Watering holes. Then we can be weird together and push each other to try a little bit more to take a chance on a project that we wouldn't have done otherwise. And so far we've had a lot of success, and we just need more of those weirdos to find us and to see what we can do to help them move forward.
Well, that's a perfect segue. How does, and anybody can answer this question, how do you think, I mean, if you're in OKC, how do you go about finding you? But in any community, how do you go about finding that stronger arts community?
I've been a hermit for almost 2 years now, so I
know.
do not know how to answer that at this point in time.
I mean, I think that's where the internet does come in. That's how Lane found us. Carl, I don't know, like you must have found the comics as art thing online somehow. So I think that does come in, and that's the nice crossover is like the internet can actually help you find those weirdos locally that you might never run across, like your paths may never cross in the city that you live in or the city an hour and a half away, but you can sort of connect via Instagram or connect via Facebook or something, and then maybe we end up letting you table at the bookstore, or like Lane and I were tabling across from each other at the Oklahoma City Zine Fest, which is an awesome thing. So,
Yeah. And
big shout out to Clint Williams, who runs the Oklahoma City.
Yeah. I think
the internet's just had to pick up a lot of the slack kind of that's been left from the pandemic. So, yeah.
Hopefully in the cities that you're located in, there's a handful of people off in their own little parts of the city who are trying to create safe havens for creators. Hopefully that exists in your city. But I remember talking with Natasha, and she grew up in a small town, and that didn't exist. She had to leave to a bigger, Tulsa to find community. But if you're in a position where you're looking around and it doesn't exist, how can you create it? What can you do to provide that space? And I was lucky enough that I fell within the orbit of somebody who was doing that within the arts community in Oklahoma City, and she kind of showed me what was possible. You don't need a lot of money necessarily. It helps to have a space, but if you've just got enthusiasm and you're willing to chase a good idea and help other people chase theirs, you'll be surprised what you can create with, just some bubble gum and good intentions.
Love it. So we talked a little bit about how things might change in the kind of endemic, and we've been hermits for 2 years. And how do you think the industry is changing and evolving? What do you see coming down the line this year, 2022? Let's say things keep going the way they think they're going to go. And it kind of seems like people are going to live their lives no matter how it goes. How's the industry changing? How's it evolving? Anybody?
Technology is certainly opening up a lot more possibilities on getting tangible things. Like webcomics changed everything when it wasn't just whoever's in the newspaper making a living, but like people can just create penny arcade, and that's their jobs, and they're very wealthy and working hard and earned it. But now, like, you can go get your comic book printed. It used to be you had to save tons of money, thousands of dollars back in 1980s dollars, and trying to get a print run done.
For those that don't know, that was a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could buy a
But
DeLorean.
I mean, just like, photocopying changed the world for zines, making that possible and leading into the comics with an X movement. And I think we're going to see a lot of very cool evolution on more tangibility. What are we going to read in person more?
Yeah,
I'm
I
excited
kind
to
of see that
Kickstarter.
I kind of see that same thing coming. Like people, I kind of foresee like a wave of people coming back and actually wanting to be in the same rooms together and be able to read things together. And the DIY scene is really thriving kind of right now because I think everyone's so far away. And like Charles was saying that people are kind of trying to find their own little thing that's not, it's just kind of scattered right now. And I think later on this year, we'll probably start seeing, I don't know, everything kind of come together a little bit more, or at least I'm hoping.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like in the moments where we've sort of been like, everything's kind of all right. Like things have been well attended. People have been super excited. So yeah, I have a lot of hope that this will reinvigorate the in-person gathering, the let's go try something new. Let's pick up something new. Let's go to this comic fest, zine fest thing that we might not have gone to before because we could always go to it next year. But now it's like, well, who knows if it'll be canceled next year. So
I'm curious to see what the fan conventions, how they're going to fare. We used to go to a lot of the bigger fan conventions, but we kind of fell out of that because they became more autograph events and they became, about comics. Obviously, there's differences like Carl mentioned SPX and Staple. Those are creator focused events. I'm curious to see if those did survive the pandemic. Little zine fests and things like that. Those will keep going because the creator is going to want it to exist one way or another. But I don't know, like paying $200 to stand in the line for 2.5 hours to get some guy who was on Battlestar Galactica, 20 years ago. Is that still something that people want to do?
Seems really specific, Charles. Really specific there.
Yeah. But yeah, is that
he's just angry because they cut off the line before he got his signature.
That's what I thought. But you're right. You're right. The bigger cons for sure have turned into more of a meet and greet of sorts and less of a it's a place that seems open for independent creators and people finding new comics.
There's still an artist ghetto there, but you're not you can't ever crawl out of that unless you have backing of some kind of large publisher.
Yeah.
I mean, there's, so many cool creators that are doing stuff in there. And if you know how to get there, but then you have all these alternative events like KC Zine Fest has always been fantastic for us. What Clint's trying to do with OK Zine Fest. Tulsa used to have this really great punk rock garage sale going on for years that we would go and we would just sell tons of comics at because people were going there to find new stuff. And if you like Battlestar Galactica or if you like whatever, that's great. That's where you need to go. But as an independent creator, like we're more interested in finding the places that I've got $200 in my pocket and I want all $200 that go to that stuff that I don't know that I want yet. That's where we want to be. And that's the kind of shop that we try and run, that it's about exploration and discovery rather than, about comfort and familiarity.
I love it. I think that's a great tagline for indie comics in general. Like, I don't know. People may agree with me. I know there's a lot of people out there in indie comics who want to be the next Marvel, want to be the next DC, but I find the beauty in independent comics to be that we're not. We are not those people, and that's where the diversity and the fun and the good storytelling comes into play. I want to go around because there's a question that I just love asking because everybody has different insight into this all the time. If each of you could give a new comic creator, one piece of actionable advice, what would it be? So take a minute to think on that. And let me do a quick plug. If you are a new indie comic creator, you can go to indiecomicsdispatch.com, and we have free resources that you can download. Most of them aren't even our resources. We link to the real experts who really know what they're doing, and you go to their website, give them some traffic, and download their resources. So if you're just getting started and looking for some cool things that might help you out, indiecomicsdispatch.com, and click on resources. Who wants to go first? One piece of actionable advice for a new creator.
I guess I will. My main piece of advice for new comics creators would be don't do too much before getting started. Don't plan too much, because that could all be scrapped. And it's a daunting task to actually start and, pull through the entire way. And I think it's just better to, focus on doing it as it is in front of you instead of what it could be, I guess. It's a weird way to put it, but yeah.
That's actually a great piece of advice. I know so many independent creators, again, people who are patterning themselves for better or worse after Marvel DC, and they're trying to plan out their whole universe before they write issue 1.
Exactly that.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. And I just want to say, Steve teleported for a minute. I don't know if anybody that was on anybody else's screen. He was gone, and then his screen froze, and then he was just back, like out of nowhere. And it kind of scared me. Who else has a piece of advice?
I got one.
Yeah.
Rather than planning your epic graphic novel trilogy, do something short. If you've never made a comic before, don't start doing something big. Do something short. Draw 6 pages. Draw 1 page. It gets exponentially more difficult the more pages you add on.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that before too, and that's such a great piece of advice, because again, everybody wants a trilogy, like you kind of intimated at. But the hardest thing to write as a writer for me has been writing a 4-page story. And I think the shorter you make your page limit, the more you flex those writing muscles to see if you can tell a complete story in that short time, in that short page count. Yeah, totally.
Well, I'm going to piggyback on what Carl said, because I think that is something that we tell artists all the time, just about every week. And yeah, he's absolutely right that just getting something short done, it is important just to show that you can. But anyone who's read a comic from somebody that this is their first attempt, that makes it, beyond 10 pages, it's like watching the evolution of man. And once you go back and look at that first page, you realize, oh my gosh, like I've got to do this whole thing over again. So, and if it's like your opus that you've been wanting to write since the time that you were like a wee young, then yeah, it's just going to suck all the gas out of your tank. So starting with something small and something disposable. I tell people it's like whenever you get a guitar, do you try and write the White Album on day one, or do you learn how to play a couple of small little songs? And that's what you're doing as a comic book creator. And you are doing little throwaways, and you got to really be terrible first before you can get good. And that's just the way it is with anything, no matter how gifted you are. That takes the pressure off. You're not trying to make, this Lord of the Rings thing. You're just like, okay, let's do a little Hobbit first, and it can suck, and that's fine. And then we go for the big thing. And then I'm going to do another one because I'm not obnoxious. As a writer, pay attention to panel count and your word count. A lot of new writers come in and they'll want to do, panels with, 500 words and, big bubbles and just like a little face right over here in the corner.
Yeah.
There's a standard count that's pretty helpful. 50 pages per panel, 25 pages, 50 words per panel, 25 words per bubble. And that's your max. Don't go over that. Look for an average panel count of about 6 to 9 panels per page, and do not have your artist draw like an armada. So, that be nice to your artist as a writer until like, you're able to pay him enough that they're like, you're going to draw an armada and they're going to like, okay, $signs fine.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah. So my piece of advice kind of for people like me who need deadlines is sign up for like your local zine fest or something. Sign up, get a table. They're usually pretty cheap. And do that thing that kind of both Lane and Carl and even Charles hit on. Do that short thing. Just do that thing, and it'll make you do it because you're like, well, it's either do this or I have nothing at the table. I just have to go and sit at the empty table and be like, I didn't do my homework. So do that and give yourself something doable. And I alternately love and hate talking in public. So you may hate it, you may love it, but you'll probably meet some cool people, like Charles said. You'll probably have some great conversations, and undoubtedly someone will be like, "Oh, hey, this is really cool." So, and it'll make you feel like $1 million.
That's awesome, Jeff.
Yeah, I want to build off what Steve was saying. I was thinking the same thing. You'll run across these people who are like, "Wow, your stuff's really cool," and of course, the immediate reaction to that is, "No, I'm terrible. You don't understand. Don't talk to me. I should go hide in the shadows." But we got to get beyond that, right? You got to understand that you've got a fan base and maintain connection with that fan base, right? Like they think you're cool and you think they're cool, and just be cool together. And you could like produce a bunch of stickers and they'll say, "Hey, she made some stickers. Those are awesome." And they just kind of support you, right? You get to know each other, that ideal indie of just having, a couple of thousand people who really like your stuff, and that's enough for you to live on. And that's the dream, right? I mean, like I got my barbershop that I need to go visit here in a few weeks. And that's just where I go because they're cool.
Yeah. So I don't want to say that people have bad advice sometimes. But what I will say is that you guys all had solid advice for new creators.
I was really hoping you were going to say this was all terrible advice. Every single one of you, the worst advice I've heard on this show that I've been doing for a very long time.
No, it's wonderful. So new creators, if you're out there watching or more likely listening to this after the fact on the podcast form of the show, God, that's such good advice. If you're trying to break into making a comic, just sit there and absorb what each of these people said, because there is such good truth in each of them, and put it all together and you have your way forward, really. Great advice, guys. Thank you so much for this. We're over an hour, which is great. I love it when the show just flies by and we're 10 minutes over an hour and you don't even realize it. Steve, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, thank you so much, Brett. And I know you're not feeling 100%, so I really appreciate it. Also, I wanted to give a shout out, and I'm going to send you the links to Skylar Emmons, who wasn't able to be here, but he's the creative force behind Blue Turtle Comics.
Yeah. His new comic is so good, by the way.
Yeah. And Natasha Alterici, who also wasn't able to make it. But they're both wonderful Oklahoma comics creators that had things come up. So.
Totally. And we totally get things coming up. Let me see. I got both of those posted in the comment section, and everybody's links are in the comment section. So if you're wanting to discover more about Charles, Steve, Carl, Jeff, or Lane, go to the comment section, click on their website. Guys, thank you so much again. And we're here tonight. This is our final Kickstarter fulfillment for our show, because Literati Press, Steve, backed Indie Comics Dispatch and our quest to become a 501c3 news and media organization, which we now are. Thank you, guys. Thank you for supporting the Dispatch, and we love seeing press releases and reviews from Literati come through. Those are some of my favorite to see, the smaller publishers come through that just have really good books. So if you guys are out there looking for some really good books, especially if you have a fit, so I'm going to do a small plug because I have members of my family who are autistic, and if you were looking for a really good book that represents autistic people really well, pick up Glamorella's Daughter from Literati Press. It is a fantastic book.
Thank you.
So everybody, thank you so much for being here tonight. We're back again next week. We'll be on Tuesday night next week, and that's our new night. If you're watching us on Thursday night, you're not going to see us, but you'll see Quentin's Engine Works on Thursday night. Quentin's interviewing creators who work with larger publishers, but still have creator-owned books. So he's got some great guests lined up. I'm going to let him tell you guys more about it next week when he's. I think he'll be on next week. Yeah, next week when he's on the air. Guys, Charles, Steve, Carl, Jeff, Lane, thank you guys for being here this week. Thank you guys for everything that you put into the indie comic community and just for being awesome weirdos together. Everybody out there, we will see you guys next week.